The last piece of the puzzle is what we call the great people squeeze. And the great people squeeze is quite simply this whole idea of how do we possibly, like for most people, if you look at their profit and loss, wages is probably one of the highest things in terms of expense. Can I just get a quick into the chat box? Those people, or actually show of hands, those people who have a high wage bill. Can I just get a quick show of hands on those? Okay, for those who do, this is going to be super important. For those who don't, I'm going to show you why this is another investment where you should be pouring money in and not taking money out. Because as we squeeze profit in our business, one of the things that shows up is we're paying too much wages. We're paying too many wages, paying too many people. They're not efficient. Efficiency is what Damien talked about. I'm going to talk about the people. So the first thing I want to talk about is the problem, and it shows up like this. Good people are hard to find. I've heard this at least 100 times in the last few months, and it's going to keep happening as long as unemployment is down below 1%. So we need to work out how to solve that problem. The other one is, has anyone had this where people who are looking for jobs are shopping and they're saying, I'll let you know, I have 3 other places I can work right now, so I'm going to look for the best deal. It's a buyer's market, which means if it's a buyer's market, you are now being shopped as opposed to you choosing who's going to work for you. The last problem is this poor productivity problem. And Damien alluded to this, you know, we get comfortable. And so our productivity of our team is a reflection of us as owners. And one of the worst comments I ever had from one of my first mentors, he said, in business, David, you get the people you deserve. And that was a real punch in the stomach for me, right? Because it was easy to say, I can't find good people. But the truth of the matter is you get the people you deserve. The biggest problem here is that the expense of wages is not going to go down, it's going up. And as it goes up, the concern we have is how do we manage it? So the opportunity is simple. The first thing is to be able to attract the heavy hitters, because there's good employees and there's great employees. The question is, how do I get the great employees looking at my business as a place of choice for working? The second thing is moving away from hours and moving towards results. We've all started to hear about the 4-day work week. Bunnings have just implemented last week the 4-day work week in their business. And so there's a couple of people that are leaning into this. How does this impact me as a business owner? Well, the short answer is I'm excited about 4-day work weeks, and I'm excited about employees that want better conditions, because it's a barter, which means there's 2 sides to the negotiation, and we need to know how to work and lean into this. The last thing that I want to touch on here is a thing called talent density, because one of the things we don't realize in business is a seat costs us money. Employing a person costs us more than just the wage. It's about how much they can produce for the seat they occupy in our business. So we need to talk about how do we get the best people to occupy the seats in our organization, because our base cost, the cost of the computer, the cost of the electricity, the cost of the car is the same. The difference is the amount of output from a high talent employee versus a low talent employee. I want you to start looking at your employment, your recruitment, your wages as investment, which means I'm demanding return on my investment. How do I make it the best investment I possibly can? So let's talk a bit about this. So when we do talk about this idea of working on these structures, we've talked a lot about how to improve profitability today. But often when I talk to people in business, there's 3 levels of growth of a business. The first one is that we need to get out of chaos and we need to get into control. Now, for most smaller businesses, this looks like self-employment. This looks like if I'm not there, things don't get done. And so it means that the only way to keep control is to micromanage and to be there and be available. Now, the problem with this is it limits our ability to grow. Symptomatically, if you're a small, who's a one-man band in this audience? Can I just get a quick show of hands for those people working on their own? There's 1 or 2. Okay, so here comes your biggest constraint. Going back to constraint theory, it's you. Right? You don't work, you don't get paid. Right? Now, this means that you're limiting your ability to earn. Right? And until you get out of the driver's seat, it's never going to go beyond your capacity. The second stage that we talk about is what we call the growth stage. Now, the growth stage generally has 2 flywheels, okay? There's one flywheel, which is the marketing side. I need to get more clients. And there's another flywheel, which is the delivery side. I need to be able to deliver my product or service profitably. Now, to do this, the business owner steps away from the coalface and starts to build marketing, build team, build systems. build marketing, build team, build systems, and we start to scale the business, okay? Now, when we do this, we grow. And as we grow, for a lot of people, this creates stress and anxiety, right? Because now I have to manage my team because they're spending all my money, and I need to make sure my marketing is producing enough leads because they're hungry and they need clients. So we end up in this operational space. Now, when we talk about growing our team, most people don't have the time to do recruitment well. And this is my challenge, right? Because up here is where we actually get to scale our business. Now, if any of you have read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, he talks about this a lot. And he says, you know, down this bottom level, we're known as the technician, right? And that's the person doing the work, and that's fine. You do the work, you get paid. Then we move into a management level, so we become the manager. And the manager's job is to manage growth, right? We very seldom get to spend enough time in this level here. Leadership, the leadership level. And this is where the biggest swings and roundabout and changes will occur within the business. And ironically, it's actually easier to run a big business than it is to run a small business, because I now have a team of people that are helping me do the work of growth. Making sense so far? Thumbs up if you're with me. Awesome. Very simple message, but for some people will be at different levels. Some people are at technicians, some as managers, some are at leadership. So let's talk about the 5 keys. And I'm going to smash through these really quickly, but you're going to get the understanding, okay? And I'll suggest to you that the very first key to building a successful business is to actually acknowledge that you need to know what you're building, right? Now, I know this sounds really scary, right? But for me, strong leadership starts by beginning with the end in mind. One of the first questions I ask everyone in business is, what will your business look like when it's finished? What will your business look like when it's finished? Because if you can't answer that question, that's like using a GPS to give you directions, but not putting the destination in. It cannot tell you to turn left or right unless you know the end result. Now, that end result is vision, okay? And it's about you understanding, where am I taking this business to? This becomes what's known as a common goal, number 2, right? So once we know what we're building, I can share this with my team, and then they understand which direction I'm taking the business so they can help me. Rather than just doing their work and doing what they're told, they actually help me build my business, okay? So number 1, strong leadership. That's you taking a brave move and predicting the future and deciding, what am I building? And number 2 is making it shareable with your team and making sure they understand where you're going. Now, the reason this is so important is that when I'm running my business, I'm this little guy down the bottom here. And if I don't have a vision, right, and we'll call the vision something in the future, because that's what it is. If I don't have a vision, what ends up happening is these obstacles, these day-to-day events, like my best employee just left me, my biggest client just decided to go with my competitor. These things become all I can see and all my team can see, and they end up running on the treadmill. When I'm clear on my vision, when I understand where I'm going as an organization, I build this big picture of the future. It could be 5 years out, it could be 10 years out, it could be 100 years out. The focus of the team is now on the bigger picture, and the significance of the problem becomes much, much smaller. So I'm giving you a reason why. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it in a moment, not in this call, but I'm going to give you the clues. This document is one of the things that every client we ever work with starts with, and it's painting their picture of the near future, 5 years. If you don't have a vision for your organization, or if you haven't reviewed it in the last 12 months, you need to go back and do this. I'm going to get Ryan to punch in the link for this. This is a document that we use to guide our clients. If you click on this link, you can download the 5-year vivid vision document. It gives you the questions you need to answer to paint out this picture. Now, the reason this is so important is if I'm looking for good team members, I need to give them a compelling reason to choose me over my competitor. I need to give them a compelling reason. And the only way to do that is to paint a picture of what I'm trying to build so that people say, I get what you're trying to build. I want to come and help you build it. And that's how I attract high caliber team members. Number 3, ground rules. I want to talk a bit about ground rules because part of your vision needs to be the values and the culture within your organization. And what I'm talking about here is what's important to you about how you run your business. What kind of people do I want on my bus? Now, if we don't draw this out before we go to market, we get what shows up. And who's had the experience of employing someone and having to get rid of them within 3 to 6 months? The cost of doing that to a business is sometimes in excess of $100,000, right? Because the downtime, the training time, and having to go and re-advertise. Get your ground rules right. Make sure you understand what's important to you about how you run your business. This is all part of the Vivid Vision. And make sure that this stuff is mapped out in the job descriptions, in the ads that you run, so you attract the right kind of people, not because of the money you're paying, but because they align themselves with who you are. The fourth one is the game plan. And I want to talk a bit about the game plan because this is about the specifics of the role. This might hurt some people, but I'm going to suggest you do not employ someone until you have a clear job description. And in that job description, it has 2 elements in it. The first element of what we call the position contract, going back to Michael Gerber's definitions, is a thing called a KRA. KRA stands for Key Result Area. What am I employing you to do? What is the key result that I expect that I'm paying money for? The second piece of this is a thing called a KPI, Key Performance Indicator. And the question here is, how do I know that you're doing your job? Key result area, what am I employing you to do? Key performance indicator, how do I know you're doing your job? Measurable numbers. Now, without those 2 pieces of information, do not employ anyone into your business because you're taking a risk that they come in and they're lovely people, because most people are lovely, and they come in, they make friends with us, they spend time in our office, they drink our coffee, they chat with us, and they're lovely, but they're not productive. And if they're not productive, it's going to cost you money in the end. I like having friends and I like having employees, and sometimes they're the same person. But if you're employed, KPA, KRA, and KPI. What am I employing you to do, and how do I know the job's being done? Even with contractors, it's not just for employees. Number 5 is I need people to play the game. We have to have skin in the game. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean, if I'm going to employ you to do a job, one of the biggest problems with the way we recruit right now is people are paid for time. So they come to work and they clock in and they say, I'm here, what do you want me to do? Which puts the responsibility on me as the manager or the owner to keep driving my people. I want my people to come to work and say, what part of the business do you want me to take responsibility for? So that I can take it off your plate and I can own it. Now, going back to you get the people you deserve in business. If your team are not playing to win with you, if they've got no skin in the game, don't blame them, right? Look at how you're employing them and how you're inducting them. I put the GROW model in here because every employee that you put in your business, not only do you need to give them a job description, which says, this is what I'm employing you to do, and this is how I know you're doing it. I need to grow that person into the role. And we do this by using things like the GROW model. Now, the GROW model is just a coaching model, which is about setting goals for the individual. Right? It's going to talk about what's reality. So where are they right now? What are the obstacles? What's the way forward? Now imagine every employee that you employ, you say, right, we've got you here, you've signed the job description, I'm paying you money, but let's talk about what I need you to achieve in your role. And we coach them because the job of the business owner is to manage or lead. Managing means making sure your team know what's expected of them and making sure that you deal with obstacles and you make sure they're moving forward. But I find so many people in business, they employ people and make the assumption they should know what they're doing. They've got qualifications. My suggestion is if you're not clear on what you expect from people, the chances of you getting the right people on the bus is very, very low. Is this making sense so far? Everyone thumbs up if you're with me on this. Cool. Let's bring this all together because I know there's a lot to process in today's presentation from the 3 keynotes that we've had. We've talked a lot about marketing, we've talked a lot about process, and now we're jumping into the really expensive space of people. Now, I will suggest something to you. Probably the most valuable lesson I ever learned in business is that if you can find and keep the right people, that's going to give you the highest chance of success. Ben touched on it. He said, you need a marketing team that actually know what they're doing, pay for skills, give them the job of growing the marketing. Damien talked about operationally, look for waste. Have someone in charge of looking for waste in your business. Make sure it's a role within the organization. For me, finding and keeping the right people is the secret sauce to growing a business. It's not about generating leads. Marketing companies, salespeople can generate leads. I just need to manage them, okay? So strong leadership is about deciding what is it I'm building? What is my vision? Common goals means sharing that vision with your team members and your contractors and making sure they understand what you're building together. Ground rules, make sure you have acceptable and not acceptable behavior within your organization. Each one of us is different. Right? What are your values and where are they documented and where are you teaching your team to live by those values? A game plan, a job description, key result areas, key performance indicators, reporting and responsibility, targets, who's setting that for your team? And skin in the game. Don't allow people to just promise the world and deliver nothing. Make sure you coach your team because they are going to magnify the growth of your business. Really, really simple lessons. But for most people, when I talk about this, they go, I get this, I just don't have time right now. I don't have the money to employ. And I'll tell you that all of these excuses will not solve the problem. They will justify staying where you are. And right now, the economy is favoring those people who are savvy in growing a business, not those people who are lucky and fortunate, right? Luck and fortune is good in good times. In tough times, it doesn't carry you through the business. So just simply, and I'm going to close on this for my part, and then we're going to get the other speakers in, and I want to get some interaction in the chat box. If you're stuck, if you feel like you're being held to ransom by the economy or by your employees or by your customers who are saying, you need to help me, if you're struggling to find good people, right? Or if you're stuck because no one does it as well as I do, is anyone guilty of the no one does it as well as I do syndrome? It's easy to fall into. This is going to hold you where you are in your business, right? You need to let go. We can help you do it, right? If you're interested in having a session just to talk about how to do this, right? You can click on this link. Oh, yes, Ryan's put it into the chat box he's on. A scale session. It's 30 minutes on the phone with me because I need to understand where the gaps are in your business. Right? If I can't see a channel for growth, I'll tell you, right? But most of the time, it's the business owner that gets in the way of themselves. It's the business owner that gets in the way of themselves, and they really are scared to let go. What happens if I employ the wrong people? What happens if this? What happens if my marketing doesn't work? I'll suggest to you, what happens if you do nothing is just as dangerous. And we started this whole conversation today with playing not to lose versus playing to win. And I don't feel the economy is the problem. I think it's people's ability to predict the future, leadership, people's ability to enhance their skills, management, and people's ability to let go, trust, right? 3 elements that I think each person in business needs to nurture and grow over time.